Welcome back to the DeFi Football YouTube channel. This week we're going to be doing another fan preview and we're doing Dagenham. Do you want to introduce yourself, mate, and sort of explain what you do and obviously sort of what your website is and all that?
Yeah, so I'm a Dagenham Redbridge fan, season ticket holder, and yeah, I'm a blogger. I run a website about the club, D-Dagger Match Day, and I have a weekly column online at the Barking Dagenham Post website as well. Yeah.
So be sure to leave all that in the description so you can go and have a watch. Got a Twitter account, website, stuff like that. So if you want to go and follow that. Getting into it, Dagenham Redbridge season, bit of an obviously strange season, obviously for every fan. We've said this in all of these.
Yeah.
Sort of a general sort of summary of the season, how it's gone, and sort of below expectations, above it. Sort of how's it gone?
Very frustrating, really. Yeah. We we were hoping for minimum expectation of playoffs, but then it always seems to be the case in recent years with Dagenham. Like we have since we've got the new owners, I think it was around 2017-18 season. Think that's right. Yeah, and then ever since we always have these big expectations, and I think other fans did of us in the summer just before the season started. I mean, when we got Paul McCallum in, I mean, people thought that we'd be up there, and the players we were signing were like established National League players, and then we had a couple of League Two experience as well. We've got Luke Kroll. Luke Kroll, sorry, he's been out injured recently, but yeah, it's below expectations, but it's very frustrating how now we've suddenly hit some form. It's only 3 wins off the back of 3 defeats, but it looks like we're playing a lot better together as a team now. And as I mentioned, Paul McCallum started scoring. He has started scoring some goals now. So I think we'll probably finish hopefully in the top half, which is an improvement on last season where we finished the points per game. It sort of ended up about 18th, I think 17th it might have been. So yeah, very frustrating really, but hopefully we can finish strong and build on that for next season.
That was one of the things I was going to ask you about, sort of Paul McCallum. I remember when I saw him, that transfer got announced, he scored to McBarnet, and he short spell obviously got cut short because of the end of the season, and also at Solihull had scored goals and stuff like that. So I'm thinking that could be decent. Is there any particular reason why you think it didn't quite? Said he started doing all right, sort of now towards the end.
Yeah, well, recently, yeah, he's had. I mean, Miles Weston, I think, on the stats that you do as well, the crosses he's putting in, the very accurate crosses. It's just McCallum. There was questions about his work rate, but in recent weeks, he's upped his work rate quite a lot and is finding the ball perhaps on the midfield and just finding other ways of trying to get involved in the game. But yeah, it's hitting some sort of form now. But yeah, it's very frustrating because to start with, yeah, I thought perhaps it's the way McMahon's playing. We're not getting enough balls into the box. But then Miles Weston quite quickly became perhaps our most consistent and best player. So he was getting balls into the box, and there were question marks, what it was. No one really knew, to be honest. And then, yeah, I think we might get on to about the manager. People perhaps wanted him out because, the money that had been spent on players such like Paul McCallum and not scoring, it had to be the manager. But to be fair to McMahon, he kept faith in McCallum despite some stick he was getting, and now he's finally perhaps starting to show what we all thought he was about when we first got him.
That's something perhaps for next season then, that going into next season, hopefully, if this continues, it's a bit late for this season, obviously, but for next season, you might sort of think there might be something in there next season. It could be quite good.
Yeah, we're hoping so. I'm sure we'll get onto it as well, perhaps with McMahon, but it looks like everything's starting to click now and gel, and we've had lots of players coming in and out, and perhaps Mauro Vallette, who we've recently got, he looks to link up that play between the midfield and attack. We play a lot more free-flowing in attack now as well, which hopefully will help McCallum more. And yeah, going into next season, it's exciting.
Let's move on to the manager then. Now, I remember, seeing a few tweets from some fans sort of wanting him out in, and a lot of that.
Yeah.
What was that been? Was there a point when you, after a certain game, when you thought, nah, he's going to be sacked after this? This is sort of,
Well,
going to get
this is
sacked.
perhaps, getting into the worst moment of the season. I remember doing a blog actually where, there's always talk after they talk about fickle English football fans. Every club's got fans. We've got a couple of losses. The performances aren't great. Start questioning the manager, but yeah, there's a string of performances where, and like the players seem to save him at key games. So we might have lost a couple of games, drawn a couple, it hadn't been great. And then all of a sudden we put out a brilliant performance and win, like the players would put it out for the manager. And then it sort of died down a bit and then it goes up again. It was very, up and down with the manager and confidence in him. But Notts County game was perhaps the worst performance and result of the season. I think I remember like saying we were the centre of National League ridicule for that brief period. If it's a Tuesday night to the next Saturday before the next round of fixtures, like match of the day, social media. They had 10 men, and I think it was Doyle that went in goal for them, and so nearly kept a clean sheet. I think he did for about 70 minutes because their keeper got sent off, and we just couldn't break them down, and they won 3-1, and that was the height of the anger, I think, and tension in the fan base.
Yeah, I remember. I want to say Notts County did some kind of sort of compilation of all the saves there. Makeshift keeper did. And it's one of it's your team. You laugh it off. If you're neutral, you can laugh it off. But if that's your team and you can't score against someone who's whatever, a centre back, a striker who's playing the goal.
Concerning, yeah.
I mean, you've had again like 5 or 10 minute spells or whatever, but for a large amount of the game, it's quite sort of embarrassing. Probably maybe it start of the season. We sort of spoken this before. Start of the season in terms of players. Spoke about McCallum coming in. What other players were coming in where you're thinking, this could be sort of playoffs, like you said, sort of top half of the table?
Yeah, well, we bolstered in like our depth of the squad in a lot of areas. We had, I think it's with pretty much wholesale changes within the squad because we had like Dean Rance, and then throughout the season, as I say, we've had players coming in like Joey Jones, and then we're just improving the defence because we lost Manny Onorisi, who was a big player for us, went to Scunthorpe, and he was like the rock of our defence, I'd say. So replacing him, we brought Elliot Johnson in, and Callum Reynolds, and then a lot of players from Barnet as well because they were in financial trouble, and they got to the playoffs the year before with Darren Curry. So there was belief that with these sort of players, with the leaders like Dean Rance and the players that have been to the playoffs with Barnet just the season before, that we were building something quite big and strong that we could get to the Football League perhaps in, but clearly that's not been the case.
Something we spoke about before we started recording this is sort of some of the stats. You also mentioned it before around some of the stats that we put out on the Twitter. And something I've noticed this, and I went and had a look back, is that on a number of stats, either players or just a team in general, when we do the team stats, are up there with some of the teams who were up there in the playoffs, even up there fighting for the title on some stats. And it might seem kind of strange for a mid-table type of team, to be up there. And I think sometimes we put some stats out and people are like, what? How does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you think some of that is about, for perhaps for even some that you remember individually? What do you think part of the reason for that is?
Well, it always seems to be the case. I think I wrote about the Bromley game a couple of weeks ago where we lost 1-0 to Bromley, and our former striker actually from a couple of years ago, Michael Cheek, who's like flying high at the moment, he scored the winner and only goal against us in the 1-0 win for them. And it was just like a tale of ruthlessness in two boxes, which seems to be the case all season with us. We're getting balls into the box, we're passing into the opposition third, and then as soon as we get the chance to shot on goal, we just panic and just falls apart. And also defensive errors, like individual errors and set pieces, have just cost us. So it may not show on the stats, perhaps like goals conceded from set pieces, it might. And I think it was like perhaps the goals to shots on target ratio. That is the ruthlessness in both boxes, I'd say.
So obviously not getting towards the end of the season, obviously, having a look at sort of, first of all, it's part of you sort of a bit happy, sort of thinking, it'd be awful to get promoted in this season when you're not been able to go. It's part of you sort of happy, well, listen, if we go and do it next season, then it's probably sort of better off. Is that sort of what's in your mind?
Yeah, well, we had that, I'd say mini cup run. We got to the second round and away to Mansfield. We took it right until the last minute of extra time before I think Maynard scored, and we couldn't get to the third round. But there was a part of you that you say thinking, think it's been a case of a lot of football fans this season where your team looks like it could do something like that cup run, where you really want to get there for your team and the club, obviously, but you think if you can't be there, it just sort of detracts from that. So yeah, perhaps in a way, but I still would have liked to get to the playoffs, even if we didn't get promoted this season, to get even for next season the feel for the playoffs and like being up there and competing at the top of the table. So yeah.
Yeah, and with sort of the number of games to go, based off sort of like I said previous form, what do you think where do you think you'll end up finishing this season?
Well, it's very frustrating, and some might say typical Dagenham, how like it's when the pressure's off, all of a sudden we're playing really, really good football, and we've won 3 games in a row now. I know it's off the back of, as I say, 3 straight losses, but we look like a top half finish. If we continue the form that we have at the moment, a top half finish is well within our reach. And playoffs, obviously mathematically possible, but realistically, can't see it, because it'll see teams higher up than us, having to lose and drop a lot of points, which I don't think they will. So yeah, top half, I'd say, and that would be an improvement on the 17th and 18th finishes that we've seen the last couple of seasons, and yeah, something to build on for next season.
Obviously, Dagenham themselves, former Football League club.
Mm.
What's that like, sort of in general, sort of former Football League club and sort of being around there and trying to get out? What's this league like? Because it is sort of the way it is, not very many promotion places compared to other leagues. What's that like?
Yeah, well, obviously they got promoted 2006-07 season, and then obviously we had that one season in League One, 4 or 5 years on from that, and then got relegated straight back down to League Two. But then we got relegated in 2016 from League Two, and we had that one season just after where we got into the playoff places, but then we got into financial trouble around 2017 before the new American owners came in, which is where we've got some more money. But yeah, so that, I think that was a big point. After we got relegated from the Football League, we had that good season. Then it was the whole save the daggers, and that, I think that put it into perspective for a lot of people once we went into financial trouble, that whenever people get too angry about the situation at the club, there are fans that remind people that we're lucky to have a club. And I think that's what sort of take for granted. People take for granted sometimes they don't have a club. Some supporters don't have a club after they've gone under. So I think the expectations are back up now, though, after perhaps like a period like where like a year's grace sort of thing, where the new owners came in and like they're getting used to it. And then now I think we want success again, and the pressure's on to get back to League Two. But as you say, it's a very difficult league to get out of, as I think clubs, like Hartlepool have found out, and Notts County as well. Although they're still up there and still challenging for the playoffs and promotion, but we're not currently. But hopefully next season should be the season where we start to build and mount that promotion push.
And final question, in terms of weaknesses, strengths, whatever, what do Dagenham need to do for next season to sort of have a chance of getting up into that top 7 and getting promoted?
Well, I think this is an interesting one I was thinking about, because we've shown glimpses throughout the season that we can be that. Like we beat Torquay, I think was our best moment of the season on that one of the mini winter run of form, albeit only a few games. And there were glimpses throughout the season where we showed that we are good enough to be up there, but it's just the consistency which we need to iron out, which is the case for a lot of clubs and teams in this league. And it's often the most consistent teams that end up getting promoted and in the playoff places season on season. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, with the COVID, and obviously there were a lot of excuses you could make for this season with inconsistencies and inconsistent team selections. But there were a lot of incomings throughout the season. I think whenever we sort of got into a rut, we just bought our way, not bought our way out of it, but we just chuck money at signings and things like that at times. And that did have a great effect with, obviously, Mauro Vallette recently I really rate him and think he has sort of changed our attack in a way. And him with Angelo Blanta looks really exciting for next season. They seem on the same wavelength. But I mean, yeah, so I wouldn't say too many incomings, but we need to look at the squad. I think defence, Manny Onorisi, I think, as I mentioned before, I don't think we've really recovered from losing him. He was like our rock at the back. And a couple of new signings perhaps, but I think now McMahon's had a full season with the squad because obviously he came in last January and had about just a few months with them. And now he's got his own squad that he's got this summer. I think if he builds on that slightly, but just works with them on the training ground, and if they gel a bit more, I think we have got the makings and foundation for a playoff push next season. Just needs more consistent performances.
Yep. Thanks, Jim, mate, for taking time out to come and have a chat about sort of Dagenham season and all that, and sort of some of the good bits, the bad bits, and maybe get you on sort of for next season then to have a chat about, you know, if you sack a manager or sign a good player or anything like that, we'll get you back on. Quickly before you go as well, obviously what you do, your website, we'll leave all the links in the description. So if you want to go and hear about Dagenham and sort of stuff in general, then sure to go and have a follow of that. But yeah, thanks, Jim, mate, for taking time out and coming on the show.